State of the Nation fans, have we got great news for you. We are coming to you. State of the Nation will be kicking off 2026 with 2 great breakfasts. On the 4th of February, we will be going to Pretoria, where we will have the ever-popular Davi Ruet and Bonsai Shongwe on our panel. And on the 13th of February, the day after President Ramaphosa delivers his State of the Nation, we'll be analyzing that talk with the legend that is Moletsi Mbeki and Mighty Jamie. If you want to join us at this event, please visit our website, sona.co.za, that's sona.co.za, and you can book your place, book a table, bring your whole company with. We'll see you there. We are very excited on the State of the Nation as we head into a very important political year of 2026 that we must hear from our favorite analyst, and that is the one and only Prince Mashele, and he is in the house. We are very, very excited for this. But before we start with the interview, I want to remind you to do 2 things. Subscribe to the State of the Nation channel. We need to really get going this year. And the next thing you can do is treat yourself. Go hire a car. Use Pace Car Rental, our sponsors. Go to their website, rent a car, use our code SONA, and you'll get a discount off your next car hire. So with all of that being said, it's welcome to our guest back here, Prince Mashele. Prince, welcome back to the State of the Nation.
Thanks,
so good to have you here.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks for inviting me and compliments of the new season. And let me take this opportunity to wish South Africans a Happy New Year.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. And boy, did the year get started. Before we even got over the bubble-us of the New Year celebrations, America was busy capturing the president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, taking him to stand trial in the US. There's protests in Iran. Before we get to talk about the local situation, because this feeds into local politics, what do you make of what's happening internationally?
Look, when I study history, it's fascinating that the world goes through cycles of madness. Madness comes and goes from time to time. If you don't want to go far back, you can go to the period leading up to 1914. That is before the First World War. There was a period of lull before then. The world was great. The British Empire was in charge. France was in charge of a few pockets here and there. But generally, there was peace in the world. And then 1914 comes, boom, the First World War. And then obviously that ends. There's a focus on rebuilding Europe and all of that. And then madness visits the world again through Hitler. And the Second World War is upon the world. And after Hitler, there is an international system which is sponsored by the Americans. That international system has in the main 2 aspects, or 3 aspects. One, the political aspect, which is the UN system, that leaders of nations must congregate regularly and talk about the problems of the world and solve whatever problems of the world to make sure that there is no war again. That's the political aspect. But there's a security aspect. The security aspect was actually not the UN. The security aspect was actually NATO. To say the West, those who defeated Germany, must constitute a security arrangement that will be the pillar of global peace. That's NATO. And the main sponsor is America. Then there's an economic aspect. The economic aspect is the Bretton Woods institutions. So the World Bank, the IMF. So that is the architecture that emerged after the Second World War. Now, the world has now been revisited by madness again. And not through Hitler, but through Donald Trump. Donald Trump is an embodiment of global madness. Look at what he's doing. He is demolishing the pillars that were set up after the Second World War. He is demolishing the UN, giving the UN the middle finger. He is demolishing NATO. I mean, this whole thing that he wants to take over Greenland, he is giving the middle finger to NATO. He is also demolishing the economic aspect, the Bretton Woods institutions, whatever remains of it. That's where we are. But now he is actually introducing a very chaotic element in the international system. And this is how the chaotic element works. If you are a superpower, you have military might, you look around your neighborhood or around the world, and if you see a country that has a resource and you covet that resource, use your military might to go grab that resource. That is what Donald Trump is introducing into the global system. So the whole idea of a rules-based international governance architecture, he is throwing it out of the window. So when proper history is written, when all the emotions are out, because I know people are divided. There are those who are clapping hands for Donald Trump to say, no, he's sorting out dictators. When all those emotions are out and proper history is written, this period will go down in history as a period of madness. And the protagonist of that madness, the embodiment of that madness, will be Donald Trump.
Now, South Africa finds itself directly in the firing line, doesn't it? Because not through just South Africa itself, but through some of the alliances that South Africa has taken over the years. Because the first round of Donald Trump's actions seemed to be the countries that were most opposed to him and his and to the West. Now we've seen what they've done with Venezuela. Now he's threatening to do something similar with Iran.
Yeah, look, you see, when elephants are fighting and you are a little squirrel, you don't jump into that ring when elephants are fighting. You stay as far away as possible from the theater of the fight. It's simple, it's logic. So the elephants are fighting. The US is one elephant fighting. China is another elephant. Then there's Russia on the other side, is another elephant. Then the stupid squirrel called South Africa jumps into the boxing ring. I just don't understand how stupid the leadership of South Africa could be. This is the time when South Africa was supposed to be smart. Just get out of all those fights. Those are not our fights. You see, you can take a few countries in the world. Take a country like Switzerland. It's in Europe. There was a world war there in Europe. It started there. Of course, it spread across the world. But look at how Switzerland has managed to just protect itself from all the madness by saying, you know what, we are not aligned with anyone. We're not part of all of this stuff. They're not even part of the EU. No, they just decided we will look after our own little interests. We are just a small fry in this big game. So South Africa is caught up in this thing because our leadership is stupid. They decided to take sides with some of these elephants and decided to champion issues that sucked our country into the vortex of this madness. We should never have done that, and I've said it. One of the things we should never have done, this whole nonsense of taking Israel to the International Court of Justice. No Arab country did that because we are so stupid. We did that. And look at now we're being punished by the Americans. The Americans now see us. I mean, the discussions in Congress, South Africa is now defined and described in the US Congress as an adversary of the US. Who are we so small to be an adversary of such a big power? Our leadership is stupid. So I hope that at some point this country will have a leadership that is smart, that will read events in the world and position this country strategically. You know, if I led this country, I would adopt a policy of strategic humility. Be humble. We're a small country and focus on internal development, developing our own people. We have too many problems to worry about the problems of the world.
Yeah, I suppose. Do you think our stance is being driven purely by old ideology, or do you think there's something more to it, like funding of political parties?
I think it's a witch's brew of old politics plus pure criminality. So, if you take the ANC, which is still the biggest component of our political leadership in South Africa, the leaders of the ANC are stuck in the past politically. What they teach their young leaders, your Fikile Mbalulas of this world, is the politics of the old, which is the Cold War politics, that you are with the left, which is Russia. By the way, Russia today is not the Soviet Union of yesterday. Completely different animals. But Fikile Mbalula and the idiots in the ANC, as they still believe that Russia is the Soviet Union, which is why their ideological orientation is stuck in the past. So there's that aspect. The second aspect is just pure criminality. If you look at the relationship between the ANC and Iran, there is a lot of money changing hands there, by the way. I mean, some of the dollars that ended up in Cyril Ramaphosa's sofa, I mean, he knows it, by the way. They come from that part of the world. So there's criminality going on there. So because they get this corrupt money from these rogue elements in the world, plus they are old anachronistic politics, they now are loyal to these forces. Unfortunately, they drag our country into this mess. So we are in this mess because the ANC has dragged South Africa into this mess. This is not our mess as South Africans. It's the ANC's mess.
Before we look at local politics, just to sort of finish off with the international scene, with this madness that seems to have descended on the world, and especially with the actions of Donald Trump, on a global sense, where does this lead to?
It's a very worrying situation to contemplate. You see, the post-Second World War era, even before you talk about the institutions I spoke about, there was a normative framework that was constructed. The idea that democracy is the best way to govern human affairs and dictatorship is a terrible way to govern human affairs. That was the normative framework undergirding the institutional expressions of those values. So, the US being inverted commas, a leading Western democracy, could project itself as an example of a better governance model. That, by the way, it sent a very strong message across the world, including to South Africa. Because in 1945, South Africa was under a dictatorship domestically. There was no democracy. So democratic forces across the world said, we actually want to be like Americans. We want democracy. We want to vote and decide on our own affairs. So America was an example. So where does it lead, this madness? It leads to the discrediting of democracy as a model of governance. That a leading democracy like the US can do terrible things in the world and is so brazen, it's a bully. Therefore, it cannot be an example of good governance. That's the first thing, and it's extremely dangerous. The second thing is this, and this might actually go back to the earlier point I made. It now says to superpowers, go around the world and grab. So it is actually taking us back to the era of colonialism and imperialism. That the powerful forces must just decide which part of the world they must take over. So, for example, there will be no basis for America to say to Russia, stop what you're doing in Ukraine. Because Donald Trump has done what Putin is doing in Ukraine. That's one. Two, go to Asia. Xi Jinping, if I were him, if he were to follow the leadership of Donald Trump, he's supposed to grab Taiwan. Why must he not grab Taiwan? Because Donald Trump has grabbed Venezuela and he's going to grab Greenland and he will grab Cuba, right? So we are now entering an extremely dangerous period in the world. And this takes me to this theory of human progress, that the evolution of humanity is from backwardness to progress. That theory actually is being proven wrong. That actually human beings are worse than animals. Because, in fact, by the way, if you think of it, I'm not aware of animals that kill each other the way human beings do. We are actually worse than animals. That we actually don't move from backwardness and improve and learn from our mistakes. We can actually do what we have done in the past and do worse. That's exactly what this whole period is proving. So we are, to summarize, we are entering an extremely dangerous period, going back to imperialism and colonialism, where might is key. It's the Hobbesian state of nature, a war of everyone against everyone, the law of the jungle.
Yeah, we can use our natural intellect as human beings to invent better ways of killing each other.
Yeah. And by the way, if you look at the tools that we have invented now, I mean, look at the US when they took over Venezuela, and the people actually don't talk about this stuff. That whole operation took about 30 minutes, by the way. The actual operation, the planning took a long time. In 30 minutes, they had murdered Maduro's, all of them, Maduro's bodyguards, all of them wiped out. By the way, the media doesn't it projects this thing as if no one died. No, there are many people who were wiped out during that operation. Number one. Number two, the tools of murder that the US has are shocking. I mean, they killed an Iranian general who actually went to Iraq. This happened a good 2 years ago. Using his DNA, by the way, just dropped a drone that, using his DNA, that's dropped on his forehead and just bombed him. The tools that we have manufactured as human beings to kill ourselves are shocking. There are no animals that do that.
Well, while we're on the subject of suicide and killing yourself, the ANC, once again, we always start off the year with their January the 8th meeting, their birthday. It's sort of a way into the political year. They decided this year that Northwest was their victim, Rustenburg, to have their celebration there. It was a lukewarm event. Is there anything to even see out of that event, Prince, as we head into an election year?
You know, if you are a province and the ANC chooses to host its birthday in your neighborhood, you must know you are the most unfortunate province. You are unlucky. The ANC is a guest you don't want in your house. Firstly, we know the ANC is a bunch of thieves. So when they come to a province, you must know, there's a problem. The Northwest is one of the most ravished provinces of our country. Just drive in the Northwest and look at the quality of the roads. We'll tell you, Mafikeng. It's shocking how the ANC has destroyed that province. The fact that they chose the Northwest, it's actually an indication of an admission of the end of the road. They went to the West Province to communicate a message to South Africans that we are dead. Look at this province. We are highlighting what we have done. They've ravaged it. So that's what I read into it. Of course, Ramaphosa stood in front of the crowds, and the stadium was not full, and made promises as they usually do. But we know that the ANC does not deliver on its promises, full stop. The people of the Northwest know that this was just a party. Comrades came driving their X5 BMWs and their Range Rovers, and they drank expensive whiskey, and they are gone. And nothing will happen after that. That's the summary of the ANC. The ANC has reached a dead end. I've said this before, and I'm saying it again. In 2029, the government of South Africa will not include the ANC. Mark my words. In 2029, the new government of South Africa will not include and involve the ANC. Ask me then.
Well, I think we'll set up that interview already, because that's going to be a fascinating one. Now, this happens against the backdrop. We've already touched the foreign relations one. The one part of South African life that just seems to idle in the background, doesn't do a lot, but it's there. It's the government of national unity. That seems to be, at the moment, beyond question, that it's in place. Nobody's threatening its existence. Nobody's threatening to leave. What's the health check on the government of national unity?
You see, I supported the government of national unity, by the way, reluctantly. And by the way, I still support it reluctantly. I haven't moved.
Yeah.
And here's my logic. I'm a pragmatist. My logic at the time was, if you do not have this combination that constitutes our government, who else? That was my question. And I spent a lot of time thinking about that. And my whole point, by the way, I don't care about the political parties. I care about South Africa. So I said to myself, which one would be a better shock absorber? Because South Africa is in trouble. So if you didn't have the DA and the ANC, I mean, they are the real government of national unity. Forget Mackenzie and the other Mickey Mouse little things. You would, alternatively, you would have had the ANC and Umkhonto weSizwe, or the ANC and the EFF. I was so scared when I imagined that, because I know this bunch. The ANC and Umkhonto weSizwe and the ANC and the EFF are the same thing. The Umkhonto weSizwe, this is the extreme criminal element of the ANC that broke away from the ANC. The EFF also is a criminal element that broke away from the ANC. So it would have been a consolidation of criminals. And that scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
So I said, if you have the DA in there with the ANC criminals, at least the DA will watch what the criminals are doing. But as we can see from Madlanga Commission and the Parliamentary Ad Hoc Committee, the ANC criminals have continued. They have never been disturbed by the presence of the DA. Also, the DA also is committing its own suicide. Factional infightings are unfolding as we speak. But having said that, I still support that it's a shock absorber, because if you don't have that bunch, who else? That's my question. So I would still have the ANC criminals as the way they are, and the DA the way they are. I actually consider them a placeholder. They will be removed in 2029, and there will be a new proper government in South Africa that can take this country in the right direction. So that's my reading. So that government of national unity is a placeholder. It's not going to improve anything in South Africa. Let's be clear. It will not improve anything in South Africa. It will simply slow down the pace of decline, just slowing it a little. But the decline continues. It is for South Africans to think very seriously as to what they will do and what they want to do with their country. And they must think now and prepare for 2019. Nobody must rush into in elections. I hear people say, but we cannot wait until 2029. No. We are a constitutional democracy. There are electoral cycles. We must respect them. Those criminals in our government, they were elected. They need to finish their term. There's nothing you can do about it.
Now, you mentioned about the DA and their suicide mission that they're on at the moment. The whole thing seems totally preposterous and ridiculous. The firing of Deon George as the minister to replace him with Willie Oukamp. He knows where all the bodies are buried financially within the party. It's been a complete mess. John Steenhuisen's own financial behavior being brought front and center. This is now meant to be the party that is well organized, that is meant to be well run, and it's not looking much better than what all the things that they've been moaning about for years, quite rightly, that the ANC were doing. Now they seem to be turning into an absolute version of this. What do you make of the whole Deon George fiasco, and do you think there'll be any knock-on effect for that, for the DA?
Let's start here with the DA. And I think I've said this in the past. The DA was never formed to be a government in waiting. And this is what most people forget, by the way. The DA was never formed to be a government in waiting in South Africa. The DA was formed to be a political insurance for white South Africans. Let's be blunt about it. And I understand those who conceptualized the idea of the DA at the time, Tony Leon and them, I understand their frame of mind at the time. The ANC was rising. It was clear. Well, in fact, when the DA was formed, the ANC was already in power. And the ANC had moral appeal, the leadership of Nelson Mandela. Their thinking, those who formed the DA, was that the ANC was going to rule forever. And this is a black government. So we don't know what's going to happen to white people. So let's form a political insurance for white people. Its role will be to scream in parliament. Just scream so that these blacks don't touch our interests. That was the idea.
We'll just write strongly worded letters.
Exactly. And there was a whole fight back thing, Tony Leon. And then they will deploy lawyers. Yeah, we'll just run to court. Every little thing we run to court. That was the idea, the original idea. At some point, the leadership, after Tony Leon was out, and it was Helen now, they had won Cape Town and the Western Cape, Mid-Val, and they began to think, it is actually possible for us to take over power. But then they said, okay, how do we do it? They said, okay, we will go around, recruit young blacks that were going to mold and eventually place them in leadership positions while we pull strings. And we are going to fool the black majority and say the DA is transformed. That thing failed. Now, they then entered
Sorry, can we go back? Why did it fail?
The reason why it failed is this. This idea that you can be given an office and be told to behave like a puppet and you will listen. It's a fallacy. It doesn't happen. I've studied the history. Even the worst of idiots, once they're in office, they understand power. They want to lead. So those young fellows were groomed by the DA, including Musi Maimane, Lindwe Mazubuku. At some stage, they were now occupying the offices, and they felt and behaved like leaders. And now, the wire pullers now had to negotiate with these guys. And these guys were not bending. They said, no, we are now in leadership. And then the wire puller said, this is our party, it's not yours, out. They kicked them out. That's why it failed. And I'm going to be blunt about it. And then the DA enters the next phase. The next phase is we're taking back our party. We don't care about these black people we started this thing, we are protecting it. That's where the DA is. And now this comes to George. And then they enter, they participate in elections, they don't move. The DA is not moving electorally. It's stuck. And they know, and they talk about this thing, they are not moving. And now they begin to be confused internally. When they are confused, they start fighting because there is no strategic goal and they're not moving towards any strategic goal. So what do? They turn against each other. That's where the DA is. They will become even more mad. You know, if in South Africa you were to have a truly South African party, a party of black and white South Africans who are credible, the DA would be wiped out in a moment. And it would become even more mad. They would expel each other. They would do all sorts of nasty things to each other. So that is what is happening in the DA. It is stuck. There is no strategic goal that they are chasing. They are not making any progress. They are now devouring each other. That is what is happening. So this fellow to be expelled from the DA, George, is not the only one and the last one. They will expel each other. They're now turning on the leader, John Steenhuisen, and exposing his dirty linen. By the way, this whole thing about credit card, it's all nonsense, by the way. In the first place, John Steenhuisen should never have been leader of the DA, in my view, if the DA is what they have been telling us to be. John Steenhuisen is actually an uneducated fellow. Even if you say the DA is it's a party of white people generally are educated. Why do you say to white people you are going to be led by the West among you? John Steenhuisen is not the best even among our white population. So he should never have been there in the first place. So, but to summarize, the DA does not have a strategic goal and they are stuck. As a result, they now turn against each other.
How bad is this going to be? Will it make any difference for them at the polls in the local government elections?
Look, here's the thing. South Africa is languishing under a dictatorship of no alternatives. And I'm stealing this phrase from my intellectual role model, Roberto Mangabera Unga. The book is False Necessity. We are languishing under a dictatorship of no alternatives. So you could say the DA is going to suffer. But if the DA suffers, who wins? That's the question. No one. If you look at the opponents of the DA, they are scary. The opponents of the DA is the EFF. My goodness, if the EFF were to take over South Africa, I would emigrate to Botswana tomorrow. Because they would collapse this country in a minute. Those are the opponents of the DA. The other opponents are the African National Congress. These are thieves. I mean, look at Madlanga Commission. These are criminals who murder people, opponents of the DA. And then you also have Umkhonto weSizwe. These are tribalists. It's actually a family affair of Zuma. Look at how they're expelling each other every day. So the DA actually, there is no alternative to it. So the DA is not going to suffer electoral consequences. It will simply be stuck where it is. But this is what I know let me predict. And I've endorsed Helen Zille for Johannesburg, and I still endorse Helen Zille for Johannesburg because I think as an individual, she has demonstrated to be capable of leading. She led Cape Town, she didn't collapse it. She led the Western Cape, she didn't collapse the Western Cape. I think that the residents of Johannesburg will elect her and make her mayor. They will actually lead Johannesburg, and they will actually make some gains in Tshwane and in the big metros, but marginal gains, despite all the mess. Why? Because South Africa is languishing under a dictatorship of no alternatives.
What did you make of what happened in the KwaZulu-Natal legislature and this debacle with the National Freedom Party, who hold, I hate that term, the balance of power, but that one seat that is critical to deciding which party governs KwaZulu-Natal?
I knew it would happen at some point because that happens in coalition governments across the world. I mean, just look at Europe. They have the longest history of coalition governments, by the way, Western Europe. So when you have power balancing on a knife edge, and the knife edge in the context of KwaZulu-Natal is the National Freedom Party, you must know that whenever there is wind and there's a bit of movement, the knife is going to cut a little bit. That's exactly what is happening in KZN. And remember, there is Umkhonto weSizwe that got 45% there. They are coveting that power, and they are not going to sleep. They don't sleep. They spend sleepless nights and say, how do we grab this thing from this mortal crew? So there will always be an attempt to grab that power by the MK party. It is actually the MK party that is shaking the tree in KZN, because they want to grab the power and they want to loot. I mean, we know what Zuma does. Where Zuma is a looter in chief. He has looted South Africa. So they want to loot KZN. So that's essentially what is happening. It's Zuma trying to grab power.
There seems to be what is now a very well-trodden path, and that is for these small parties. You go into these places where no party gets an outright majority. You form the coalition, let's call it, with the good guys, whoever that may be, which immediately then ups your price that the bad guys are prepared to pay. We've seen that in the city of Johannesburg. We've seen that in the city of Tshwane. We've seen that in the city of Nelson Mandela Bay, all those metros. And now it's happening in KZN. And I said, well done to Ivan Barnes. He's got one chance. He's got 5 years to make as much money as possible. And his best way of making money is to form the coalition with the IFP, DA, and ANC, right? And wait until the phone rings with Msholozi upping his offer.
Yeah, you are a very good theorist of the chaos, Mike. Maybe they should hire you to be their strategist. Here's the thing. You are right, by the way.
It's fairly obvious, because the same thing happened most notably in Johannesburg and Nelson Mandela Bay.
Yeah. The question is, how did we get here as a country? Because you see, the stuff you and I are talking about, it's actually the serious business of a province, the serious business of a country. You know, our country has now been reduced to a theater of political clowns and scoundrels playing those types of games. So this idea that politics is actually an instrument of societal progress is out of the window. That's one. Two, now I'm answering, how did we get here? It is because if you look at the political theater in South Africa, provincially, nationally, the people who are in our parliament, the people who are in our council, in our provincial structures of politics are actually the worst of our society. The best and brightest are not in politics. So if you have the best and brightest outside politics, you end up with exactly the situation I've described, where the thugs and criminals are playing those types of games. And they're playing marbles with the future of our children, because the best, the ethical, and the brightest have decided to withdraw from politics. I hope that at some point, the best among us will realize that South Africa is too precious to be left to those clowns and scoundrels, and they must go into those provincial structures. They must go into parliament. They must go into the councils. Then once you have those structures dominated by good people, that game will stop. The game continues because it is the scoundrels who are in the political theater.
Now, obviously, the big problem is caused by these small players, people with one seat, knowing that they don't have a future. They might as well. If you're Colleen Makubela, why not sell your seat in the Johannesburg City Council when she collapsed that particular coalition? Why not? You know that your party is not going to get a seat at the next election. So you might as well sell that seat while you can, while there's still some value to it. The same goes with the NFP. They're not going to exist after 2029. We know it. They basically don't exist now. Do you think our voters are ready to get to the point where they stop voting for these scoundrels, as you put them, because that's what they are, You know, we see it with the Northern Alliance in Nelson Mandela Bay.
No, our voters will vote for scoundrels if good people don't go into politics. I mean, you can't say there is a contest between the good and the bad, but the good are not in the theater. So who do you expect our voters to vote for? They will vote for scoundrels because it is only scoundrels who are in the theater. So I'm sorry to say, but you and I, Mike, are going to be governed by scoundrels. And you know, our role will be to sit here and complain and theorize. Yeah. So if you want the country to be governed by good people, and you are good yourself, Mike, go into politics. Go into politics so that you elbow the scoundrels out. But let me say this, because you see, the good people, I know, and I meet a lot of them. I say, no, I can't go there. These people are so bad. No. Look at what they're doing in parliament. You must know it's a fight. It's a fight. You must be prepared to fight for your country. If you are not prepared to fight for your country, it will be destroyed by scoundrels. Two, and this is a reassuring. It's not a fight. It's we don't use guns. If you look at those politicians in parliament, they generally don't kill each other. They just use their shouting and so on. You must prepare that they will shout at you. So I'm saying the voters will vote for scoundrels because good people have decided to withdraw from the political space. So the problem here, it's not the scoundrels. It's the good people who are not going into the political theater.
One of the good people who's being mentioned about getting into politics has been, for a while, the rumors go up and then they subside, and that is the rumor around Patrice Motsepe stepping in, swooping in from outside to become potentially a leadership candidate for the ANC.
Yeah, you see, I've said this before. And by the way, Motsepe is very busy now. I happen to receive this information before others get it. Don't ask me where I get it. I've got pictures of T-shirts that they are printing in the ANC. It's written, Savumelana, we have agreed. And it's got PM, which is Patrice Motsepe. The printing machines are busy now, printing Motsepe's T-shirts. So Motsepe wants to be president. But his mistake, and I've said this before, is to think that in order for him to be president, he must use the ANC. He's using a dead horse. He wants to enter a race and he picks a dead horse. It's not going to run anywhere. The biggest mistake that he's making. He's going to destroy himself if he gets into the ANC. That's number one. Number two, I'm smelling a rat about Motsepe and what he's doing in the ANC. And here is the rat I'm smelling. There is a scheme, I think, that has been concocted by Cyril Ramaphosa. Because Cyril Ramaphosa knows that he's exiting. And he does not want the ANC to be taken over by a leader who might arrest him. Because there's pala, remember. Actually, if you had a proper government after Ramaphosa is supposed to go to jail. And he knows that. So what does he do? He talks to his brother-in-law, Cyril Ramaphosa. Hey, I will influence dynamics in the party for you to enter and take over. The deal is, you will protect me. I mean, do you think if Motsepe were to take over as the president of the ANC and the president of South Africa, do you think he would allow Ramaphosa to be arrested? Hell no. These people are blood relatives. There is absolutely no way. So Motsepe actually is a bad guy. He's not a good guy in the context of the ANC politics and the rot in South Africa. He would never reverse the rot because he would be beholden to the faction of Ramaphosa and protect that faction. And you know what we need in South Africa after 2029? You need a proper government that must descend very hard and mercilessly on the political criminals of the ANC and others, including Ramaphosa. Motsepe would not do it. So South Africans must not be fooled by this Motsepe thing. It's not going to fix anything. Of course, he has a lot of money. He's going to pump a lot of money into the campaign. But South Africans must wake up. Motsepe is a bad guy. in the context of the factional politics of the ANC. He would not rescue our country. And we must be very clear about it.
So when do you think that's going to come to a head? Do you think the rumor mill is going to go all the way through to 2027?
Oh, yes. By the way, the T-shirts I'm talking about, they're written 27.
Right.
The PM 27 Savumelan. That's what is printed on the T-shirts. You will see them, the T-shirts, and you will say, "Yeah, Prince is smoking." No. In a matter of months, you will see the T-shirts I'm talking about. They will surface.
Yeah.
So this campaign is starting now all the way to 2027 December. Is to mobilize ANC structures to fully support Motsepe. The word Savumelana means we have agreed. Yeah, that's what they are sending in within the ranks and file. So yes, we are going to see this thing being ramped up as we get closer to 2027. But it's a long campaign, and Motsepe is going to pump a lot of money behind it.
Okay, because one, almost immediately after the last ANC elective conference, and of course after the election, the conversation turns to succession, as it will. You can't not talk about it. It's obvious. You've got a president in his last term. Succession becomes a question. And we saw a couple of attempts to derail Mashatile. We've seen a few games that are being played. In your opinion, has anybody, where do the current stocks lie of the people that are being mentioned from within the ANC? Do you think Mashatile has done his chances good? Balula's mentioned, and I know even Toko Didiza has been mentioned.
Okay, let's start here, Mike. The ANC has run out of presidential material. Start there. If you look at the ANC and say, is there someone who is presidential? Let me tell you, there is none. The fact that they're even mentioning clowns like Mbalula as a possible president is an indication of the cul-de-sac that the ANC has hit. They've reached a dead end. So that's the first point. Then, and by the way, that point is the most important point. The second point, which is answering your question, it's actually trivial as to who is going to take over, because they're taking over a dead horse anyway. By the way, whoever is going to be the president of the ANC, let me tell you this thing, will never be the president of South Africa in 2029. Full stop. So these people are fighting over a carcass. So who is leading that race to capture the carcass now? My reading tells me is Mbalula. The problem with Paul is this. Paul has stabbed too many people in the back on the road to becoming the deputy president of the ANC. He dribbled KwaZulu-Natal, remember? Recently. He also dribbled KwaZulu-Natal and partnered with Zweli Mkhize at some point. And if you look at all the people he partnered with as him being deputy and that person being a presidential candidate, all of them have lost. No one now trusts Mashatile in the ANC. Mashatile now occupies the position that used to be occupied by the late Didi Mabuza. May his soul rest in peace. Didi Mabuza, nobody trusted him in the ANC because of the dribbling he had done. So Mashatile sits exactly in that position. Fikile, because he's SG, he is in contact with the structures of the party on daily basis, and he runs the national office. He is more in touch with the party than Paul. But someone who's very close on the heels of Fikile is Motsepe. Don't underestimate Motsepe, because Motsepe has money. And here is the ANC. The ANC is an auction. The chap with the biggest bag of money gets it. That's how the ANC works. So Motsepe is aware of it. And I can tell you, he's going to pump a lot of money to buy votes in the ANC. So don't underestimate Motsepe.
Okay, so just in wrapping up, you mentioned that 2029, we're going to see a change of government. The ANC is not going to be in government.
Yes.
If not an arrangement which looks a little bit like the one we have now, what are you seeing? Or are you just saying that something has to happen, we're just not sure what it is yet?
Something has to happen. Number one. Number two, my ears are very sharp. I am hearing discussions. And these discussions at some point South Africans will see. I'm hearing discussions about, by many South Africans, black and white. South Africans are worried about the future of their country. And I'm hearing discussions to come up with a project that will rescue this country and redirect it. I hope those discussions will lead into something. So, and if these discussions progress the way I am seeing them, South Africa will never be the same again. And I can tell you the ANC will be out of power in 2029.
You're going to leave this like a soap opera where we have to leave it there and we've got to come back for the next episode to get that information.
Look, I mean,
these people are going to lynch me.
Yeah, no. Here is what I can say to South Africans.
Yes.
Trust me. Something big will happen in South Africa before 2029. And this whole mess will be stopped.
Okay. Well,
that's all I can say.
Yes. Well, as long as when it happens, we hear about it first on the State of the Nation.
I'll come back and say, do you see? I told you.
Yeah, that'll be a bit too late.
Yeah, you will also see.
I'm sure we will communicate and bring it to you, the loyal State of the Nation watchers. Thank you so much for joining us today. To Prince Mashele, it's always an honor to have you here. To Pace Car Rental, thank you for keeping us on air. Subscribe to the channel. We'll see you again on the State of the Nation. Thank you very much for joining us.